In the 1960s, a group of parents banded together to secure for their children with developmental disabilities a shared dream, a better life. The vision was born out of both love and defiance. They rejected the limited options and imagination of a society that wouldn't consider the potential or value of people with disabilities. The shared dream of this group of parents, a reality of disability inclusion and acceptance, is at the core of who we are at VistAbility. In our 60 years of service, the agency has seen the dawn of community-based disability services, the dismantling of state asylums, the evolution of employment advocacy, and the recognition of mental health care. Through it all, our commitment has remained steadfast. Our purpose is our commitment to the self-determined success and happiness of the individuals we serve. Much like VistAbility's founding families who boldly defied the conventions of their time, we continue their fight for greater opportunity and equity for people with disabilities. To better understand this fight and the terms in which it was waged, we'll need to go back to the 1960s.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Think, let your mind go, let yourself be free.
An era of change was in full swing. Civil rights activists across the country challenged the systems and norms that disadvantaged people on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. It was a time of strife, strides, and unrest. Here in the Bay Area, the disability rights movement was born under the leadership of Berkeley activists who championed inclusion in all sectors of life. One of these activists, Bay Area native Ed Roberts, was the first person with a significant disability to enroll at UC Berkeley, a school which at the time was neither accessible nor welcoming of people with disabilities. He and his peers pushed for greater inclusion and accessibility, advocating for lowering countertops and telephones to widening bathroom doors to accommodate wheelchair users. Through their self-advocacy, UC Berkeley, which once relegated students with disabilities to live in the infirmary, became one of the most accessible college campuses in the U.S. The same spirit that motivated Roberts and his peers spurred parents into direct action of their own. Back in the 1960s, it was a common practice for doctors to tell new parents that it was best to surrender their child with a disability to an institution. Institutions, also known as state hospitals, were facilities that housed people of all ages with disabilities, mental health needs, or other conditions. Unfortunately, they were often underfunded, poorly staffed, and rife with abuse and inhumane living conditions.
Many families did institutionalize their kids and forget about them. Some families kept their kids at home, and at that time it wasn't common for moms to work, and so they were full-time caregivers for their kids with disabilities. Without supports, without training, there was none of that in the 60s.
A group of parents in Richmond who had refused to accept that institutionalizing their children was the only option banded together to create a co-op that shared respite care between several families. Started by an ad in the West County Times, this growing group of parents relieved each other of their, at times demanding, caretaking duties to allow parents to attend to other children, household work, and other responsibilities.
We had a son who was mentally challenged. I guess that's the word we use these days. And he got services from one of the merging organizations, and that's how we got involved in CCARC. When we moved to Richmond, West Contra Costa County, in 1962, our son was a year old. And so we started looking for a preschool for him, but it was not easy. You couldn't open the yellow pages and look under disability and find a category that would help you. So yeah, it was kind of an effort.
In the 1960s, there was no government assistance available for families with disabled children. public school was not an option for children with disabilities, special education classes wouldn't be mandated in California until 1969 and nationally until 1975. In 1965, the co-op incorporated as a nonprofit to attain state and federal grant funds and achieve more through their lobbying efforts. The agency was originally named Contra Costa Association for the Mentally Retarded. Use of this word, now referred to simply as the R word, was common in the 1960s. However, society's second-class treatment of those ascribed this label imbued this word with a negative stigma. The parents' use of this word reflected the vernacular of their time and underscored the limited language our culture had to even describe developmental disabilities. Today, this word is regarded as a slur and considered offensive. California has since enacted laws to eliminate the use of the word when referring to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The name of the agency would later evolve into Contra Costa ARC to reflect its affiliation with the ARC, a network of agencies across the country for the advancement of people with disabilities, as well as its dedication to advocacy, respect, commitment. Around the same time, Ellery Langford helped open a preschool for children with developmental disabilities in a church in Danville. Ellery's daughter, Terry, was born with Down syndrome, and there were no preschools in the area that could accommodate her. This preschool would later move to Pittsburgh and be named the Lynn Center, the first of Contra Costa ARC's Early Start program sites.
Our Early Start programs, which we have preschools for children 18 months to 3 years old. So children with developmental delays or disabilities have an opportunity to get more one-on-one or small group experience. We also offer speech and language therapy. We are some of the first people that are encountering families on this journey that they didn't think they were going to be on. We had a family, they weren't very talkative with us, but she was there every day. They were a very sweet family. And when she graduated, the mom said to me, you know, I worried so much that nobody else would love our daughter as much as we do. And now I know there are other people that will love and care for our child.
In later years, the Lynn Center would grow to incorporate behavioral health services, offering crucial mental health services not only to children but the whole family unit.
We are known in the community as an agency that does early intervention mental health services for kids 0 to 5. We have a therapeutic preschool that is for kids who need a little bit of help with self-regulating, social skills, impulse control. A lot of our kids have tried to go to other schools. They've been asked to leave because they're considered to be like too something, right? So they're too hyper, too defiant, too aggressive. They run off. So they're able to come to our school here and they're able to have a really positive school experience. Then we also have therapists who do the play therapy. We also have a wraparound program. The team supports the entire family, right? So the family is able to say, I need help with goals 1, 2, and 3, and then the wrap team will support the family with goals 1, 2, and 3.
In the mid-60s, Henry Lynn started a work program for adults with disabilities in the garage of a donated house on Geary Street in Walnut Creek. This group completed lawn services for pay and addressed an unknown for many adults with disabilities at the time: what options do I have for work? In 1969, the Lanterman Act was passed and guaranteed all Californians with intellectual and developmental disabilities a right to services in their communities.
So all those things were converging at the same time. It was like a huge tornado of activity coming together for the sole purpose of supporting people with disabilities in California. So it all worked.
In the 1970s, the funding that the Lanterman Act promised finally began to roll into Contra Costa ARC. A stable source of funding meant hiring full-time employees was now possible. John Rumsey was hired on to the agency's Work Training Center West in Richmond in the early 70s.
At that time in '74, there were a bunch of us college students that had graduated and were active in the social justice field. So this was a natural place to land. We go out after work together to talk about the clients and talk about our lives and everything. So there really was a kind of a family atmosphere in work at that time.
The Geary Street Lawn Crew in Walnut Creek had expanded to Antioch and Richmond to create Contra Costa ARC's Work Training Centers East and West. These programs laid the foundation for what would eventually become Commercial Support Services, known around the agency as CSS.
The participants here get trained in not just the skills necessary to do the job, but everything that comes with it. So we do spend a lot of time on soft skills training, problem solving, challenges with co-workers, how to talk to managers, and all of the processes that any other employee would need to master to be successful in their workplace.
On the other side of the bay, in San Francisco, disability rights activists were securing wins of their own. In 1974, the federal government passed the Rehabilitation Act to aid disabled veterans returning from the war in Vietnam. Section 504 of this act promised to require all public services funded by the federal government to be accessible for people with physical disabilities. This not yet ratified bill was the first of its kind to include people with disabilities in civil rights legislation of any kind. Federal office sit-in protests took place across the country to call for the passage of Section 504, with San Francisco sit-in lasting nearly a month. The iconic disability rights activists Judy Heumann and Kitty Cones rose to prominence for their outspoken leadership of the longest sit-in in the nation's history. Back in Richmond, a young woman with thick brown hair and unrivaled ambition was hired to work at Work Training Center West. The rest, as they say, was history. Big things were in store for Barbara Mazie during her 46-year tenure at Contra Costa ARC. More on that later. A new decade meant new opportunities for Contra Costa ARC. At the time, the agency's main service was that of employment services and advocacy. But now, with the help of 2 large grants, the agency now had the freedom to open a new program. In 1984, Contra Costa ARC's Community Access Services was born, and newly hired Carol Ann McCrary was tasked to open it.
They hired me to implement the grant. So the George Miller Center provided us with art so that we could pass our final inspection to open 21 and Still Growing. They had picked that name prior to me coming. It was awful to answer the phone because there were all kinds of smart aleck responses when people heard you say 21 and Still Growing. And So it was on Dover Avenue, so we then changed the name to Dover Adult Center.
With what would later become Cap Hilltop running smoothly, the agency secured another grant to open Franquette Adult Services to address a 40-person long waitlist for services in central Contra Costa County. This program would later move to a renovated former butcher shop on Clayton Road and be renamed Cap Concord.
So Community Access Services right now has 13 different types of programs and services serving adults who are at least 18 and over. The thread throughout for adults in CAS specifically, it's all about choices, giving them opportunities to explore their communities and being a part of the communities in the way that they would like.
By the mid-'80s, Contra Costa ARC was in deep financial trouble. California's budget deficit meant severe rate cuts for regional center providers like Contra Costa ARC.
The agency was not doing well financially, and we knew it because our phones were being shut off, the garbage wasn't being picked up, our bills weren't being paid. Paychecks were bouncing, and things were not looking good.
In 1985, Executive Director Ria Nylon died unexpectedly of a brain tumor during her tenure and was succeeded by Barbara Mazie, promoted from Director of Commercial Support Services.
I'm Barbara Mazie. Most of you know me. I'm the Executive Director of Contra Costa ARC, the agency that you work for.
In 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush. This landmark piece of civil rights legislation protected individuals with disabilities from discrimination and exclusion, ensuring that they have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. In 1992, Care Parent Network was formed by 3 agency parents as a way of supporting families of children with disabilities.
The fact that CARE is staffed by parents who have a child with a disability, we have that lived experience. And even though some of our kids are a little bit older now, we all can still remember what it was like to be a parent of a young one just receiving a diagnosis. You have a lot you're expected to navigate right away. And so, yeah, we want to help other parents and just support them emotionally, help them feel like you've got this and tackle one thing at a time, and know that we're here to help them all along the way.
Employment services also expanded in the 90s, now including supported employment, which gave participants on-the-job training and support in their careers.
We do have our supported employment component that does consist of our individual placements who are hired directly by employers, and we have a team of job coaches that work with them to ensure that they are successful at the job in terms of whatever work requirements are taking place. Our job coaches are there to support them, to train them and teach them as much as the individual requires. We have a lot of folks who are really successful in their jobs, and we've got some great partners that we're working with.
In 1998, Contra Costa ARC was tasked by Regional Center to temporarily operate a Danville-based program. Carol McCrary and Francine Lim Paris agreed to take on the program's participants. The duo were impressed by the 100% community-based program model, which meant the services could focus on building life skills within the community itself. McCrary and Lim Paris took what they had learned about this new program model back with them to Contra Costa ARC. In the year 2000, Inroads was born. This was just the beginning of an era of unprecedented expansion for the agency. Going into the new millennia, Executive Director Mazie did not want the agency to expand any more than it already had. She believed refinement and stability was more crucial than growing the agency and exposing it to new risks. Despite what Mazie wanted, 2 unforeseen crises forced the agency to expand. First was the struggling county programs that were at risk of failing. In 2005, Contra Costa County was operating 2 program centers in Concord and Richmond, named after Congressman George Miller Jr., at a $2 million deficit. To protect these programs from closing, the county wanted a local nonprofit experienced in the field to take over operation in their stead. Contra Costa ARC, locally known as a financially stable and well-regarded provider, was selected by the county from a largely competitive field of other nonprofits. These new properties added 2 new adult day programs and early start programs to Concord and Richmond, and introduced after-school programs, a brand new addition to Contra Costa ARC's catalog.
Students come to us 7 years to 22 years old after school. It's not helping with homework after school. It's not academic in nature. It's daily living skills, it's social, it's friendships. A lot of our students can't just go to the after-school program at their school because their needs aren't met there. But they're teenagers, most of them, and want to be social with their friends. And so this is an opportunity. So it's pretty amazing to see the groups of kids and how much they support each other. You know, they have their differences, but they're also each other's. They see each other on weekends. They hang out together. They all went to the prom together. So it's really nice to see them know each other so well and really kind of have each other's backs.
That same year, Agnews and later the Sonoma Developmental Center in 2018 were shuttered after decades of criticism regarding the poor treatment of patients and ethics of institutionalized care. The patients at Agnews were being relocated to residential care homes in Alameda County, and there was a dire need for organizations like Contra Costa ARC to provide enrichment services to these communities. Like many other crises facing the disability community, Contra Costa ARC rose to the occasion and the Access program was born.
Access was able to provide up to 4 hours per day of what we called the fun and games department. So we did sensory activities, we were able to get accessible vehicles to take them in the community. And then eventually when Sonoma Developmental Center closed, we opened another access program in Contra Costa County with the Fun and Games Department.
The 2000s ended with yet another rock to Contra Costa ARC's boat, a global recession that threw the state of California into another funding crisis. As you may have guessed, this resulted in rate cuts for regional center providers like Contra Costa ARC. We sunk deeper into an era of economic uncertainty as we entered into the 2010s. As Contra Costa ARC navigated the challenges of the recession, it was presented with another opportunity to save a struggling local program. In 2011, Asian Community Mental Health, a nonprofit serving Asian and immigrant communities, was directed by Regional Center to find a new operator for its day program enrichment, Asian Family Resource Center, or risk closing the program permanently.
AFRC is a community-based program, serve Asian clients especially because our program we have a staff that can cover 6 major Asian languages. I would say the language and the cultural capability is our the great assets of this program. You really have to have the cultural sensibility, really to know how to serve the clients and their families. Yeah.
In 2016, Contra Costa ARC created Tailored Day Services, a collaboration between several programs to help young adults transition into their next stage in life.
Tailored Day Services came about when there was funding for individualized services for adults that are 18 years and older, so one-on-one services. This was part of helping individuals reach their employment goals, but really what it means is that somebody is able to work in a place in the community as independently as possible.
In August 2016, the agency was devastated by the sudden passing of Barbara Mazie after a brief illness. She served the agency for 42 years and was revered in the East Bay as a fierce advocate for people with developmental disabilities and their rights.
It was just devastating. So many people knew and loved Barbara.
I really see her as a great role model. She's not only advocate for the agency, she's really care about the DD community, as a whole. Even today, we still carry that spirit in our agency.
We embody her memory because our core values have never changed, and that was her legacy.
Even until today, I still really say thank her, from the bottom of my heart.
In the wake of this tremendous loss, the agency continued on without their dedicated leader. In 2018, John Boulay was hired as executive director by the board.
Barbara Mazie left very big shoes for me to fill. When I first came into the agency, just hearing that the agency had undertaken a long period of time to mourn before even beginning to search for an executive. And I think even just walking into that was sort of a realization that I was walking into somebody's shadow that cast a very large shadow. I needed to be mindful of the emotional connection that she had with her staff. Barbara created this, Carol created this. These wonderful people that came before me created this. And I'm proud to carry the torch. I just hope I can keep the thing lit.
Before she passed away, Maisie began the process of leaving the ARC. As executive director, Bollé oversaw the agency's adoption of a new name now that it had formally left the ARC. In February 2020, Contra Costa ARC was renamed VistAbility, and within a month, the COVID-19 pandemic struck and forced the agency to switch to remote services. The agency's ability to weather the COVID-19 storm was owed to the dedication of staff and resilience of participants. Throughout it all, we've remained committed to our mission to enrich the lives of the individuals and families we've served, as we have done with every challenge we've faced in our now 60-year history. When our organization was founded in 1965, the landscape of disability rights and services were much different than it is today. Special education was not provided in public schools. People with disabilities did not have the right to services in their community, and the Americans with Disabilities Act wouldn't be passed for another 25 years.
I remember calling the AT&T, urging them to have a section of the Yellow Pages about the services, and so when the parents were looking for something, they could find it in the telephone book, and then I feel proud. CCAMR was a part of the push to do this.
And I can't say enough for Contra Costa, ARC, and VistAbility, what you call it now, the impact it has had on our lives and our son. And it has impacted all those families, multiplied I don't know how many times.
We are proud to have been a part of this forward progress for people in the Bay Area with disabilities and mental health needs. While there are still barriers to access and progress to be made, we will continue to do what we have done for now 60 years, advocate and serve.